Alleluia, alleluia. Shine like lights in the world as you hold on to the word of life. Alleluia, alleluia. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. The Pharisees went off and plotted how they might entrap Jesus in a speech. They sent their disciples to him with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are a truthful man, and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth, and you are not concerned with anyone's opinion, for you do not regard a person's status. Tell us, then, what is your opinion? Is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar or not?" Knowing their malice, Jesus said, "Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Show me the coin that pays the census tax." They handed him the Roman coin. He said to them, "Whose image is this, and whose inscription?" They replied, "Caesar's." At that he said to them, "Then repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God." The Gospel of the Lord. Saint Basil the Great said, "It is right to submit to higher authority whenever a command of God would not be violated." I often hear that the church, especially during election time, should stay out of politics. But as we begin today, I want to remind all of us that the church is not a building. The church is a people, and we are those people, and we are both Christian and citizens, both, one and the same, advancing God's kingdom, ensuring that, as we say in the Our Father, His kingdom come and His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's no wonder St. Thomas would say that human government is derived from the divine government and should imitate it. As ballots pour in and as signs go up and parades go rolling out, our church invites us to consider Jesus' approach to politics. Jesus tells the Pharisees and the Herodians, "Render to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." With respect, many Christians and non-Christians alike might wrongfully conclude that what Jesus is arguing for here is a separation of church and state. Of course, there is no such thing in Jesus' day, and it would not exist for centuries. The invocation of the separation of church and state has as its goal the removal of God from politics entirely. The removal of God from our schools, from our public squares, and our places of business. There are those who would like to see God and religion reduced to the shadows, to the margins. But what is left? Only practical atheism in our schools, in our marketplace of ideas, in our businesses. My brothers and sisters, we believe that God is truth, God is love, God is justice, God is mercy. How convenient. A country without room for God. A country without truth, without love, without justice, without mercy. Where only those who have no religious conviction are allowed to share their opinion. we should be worried about such a state, where only those whose view has no God as its source, and only those can speak, where lawmakers have to somehow check their religious convictions and their values at the door, where leaders are supposed to make decisions that are not informed by virtue and holiness and goodness and eternal truths. This is madness, and it's wrong. This is not a country that we want to live in. This is not a country that I fought for, and it's not a country that our forefathers founded. Our country declared its independence with these words, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights. We declared independence because the rights that God gives His children were being trampled upon. That's God and politics, right from the beginning. The first commandment is to love God. And the First Amendment to the Constitution is that Congress will make no law with respect to the establishment of religion and prohibits the free exercise thereof. There are two clauses there. Congress will not establish a religion, and that Congress will protect our right to freely exercise our religion. As citizens, we are not expected to check our faith at the door in this country. Our founders didn't, and they didn't expect us to either. This is what Jesus means when He says to render to both Caesar and to God. We are body and soul. We live out our Christian life in the world. All authority in heaven and on earth comes from God. And to the degree that earthly government is aligned with that of heaven, as St. Basil says, we must be obedient to it. Because our obedience is not to a law, it is to what is good. Our obedience is to what is right, what is loving, what is kind, wherever it is found. Jesus said, pay the tax, for crying out loud. The coin and the denarius paid the census tax. It was a day's wage for every man, woman, and slave, aged 12 to 65. That tax paid for the privilege of enjoying the benefits and the security of living in one of the greatest empires that the world had ever known. A small price to pay, to be sure. Pay the tax already, he says. And make sure that the government who spends that tax spends it in a way that honors and glorifies God, with a concern for the rights and the dignity of the human person from conception until natural death. That our tax dollars are spent in a way that recognizes the needs of families and the rights to participate in the community's life. For an awareness that people have basic rights and that the government has a responsibility and citizens have a responsibility to protect those rights. That in our policies, we must be mindful of the poorest among us. We must be mindful of the dignity of work and the rights of workers. We need government that believes in one human family and seeks unity amongst peoples on the streets, people in the nation and among nations, and that embraces the truth that we are stewards of God's creation. We have a responsibility to protect it, to sustain it, and to ensure clean air, clean water, and a healthy climate for future generations. What I just read to you is the social doctrine of the church, that these 7 commitments are those of God's people on earth, ensuring that God's justice is done on earth as it is in heaven. I want to cringe every time I hear this. Well, I wouldn't do that, but I can't impose my view on others. Well, I think that's wrong, but I don't think it's right to tell other people what to do. Yes, we can impose our view on others. We can tell other people they're wrong, and we should. Every law that has ever been passed is because something was wrong and people wanted to do something about it. Traffic laws, criminal law, social law, all of it is passed because someone thought it was wrong and that someone should do something to fix it. I mean, can you imagine someone saying, well, I wouldn't drink and drive, but I certainly can't impose my view on others. They're free to drink and drive all they like. We don't do that. Can you imagine saying, well, I mean, I wouldn't go out and kill someone, but I guess if somebody else wanted to, that would be their right to do so. I don't want to impose my view on others. That's madness. We don't live that way. We can say this is wrong, and we pass laws to address it. We can, and we should, and we must. Make no mistake, someone's views, listen, someone's views will be imposed on those who live in this country. Laws will be passed, either by God's people or by those who claim that there is no God. The role of the church is not to tell us what to do. It is to remind us of who we are, to remind us of what we believe, and to empower us to courageously act on that belief in every part of our life, to Caesar and to God.